This video found them through a sequence too strange to ignore. A notification appeared twice for the same message. Their clock showed 11:11 exactly as they reached for their phone, and while standing in line at the grocery store, the person ahead muttered the word loop into their phone. These aren't random events, they're quantum openings, signals that the observer loop has tightened around their reality. If the same patterns keep returning, the same arguments, the same delays, the same feeling of "I've been here before," it's not bad luck or a personal curse. It's their attention collapsing the same probability waves over and over, like a searchlight stuck on one narrow beam, illuminating the same corner of possibility while entire landscapes remain invisible. Today, they'll learn to break that loop not through more effort, but by observing the observer and shifting from force to coherence. Here's what most people miss about the observer effect. Focus doesn't just witness reality, it actively shapes it. The quantum field responds to the quality of attention like a mirror reflects light. When their focus is tense, repetitive, obsessed with outcomes, it collapses the same limited options from the unified field. This creates the loop, expectations mixed with constant checking, combined with subtle body tension in the jaw or chest, all feeding a timeline that keeps repeating itself. The temporal echoes show up as déjà vu that feels too specific to dismiss, hours that drag endlessly when anxiety spikes, and patterns that repeat like scenes in a movie stuck on replay. These aren't signs of failure. They're feedback from their quantum sensitivity, proving their attention quality is powerful enough to lock or unlock entire reality tracks. The breakthrough phase begins the moment they recognize the loop exists. They wake up on a Tuesday morning, and before their coffee is even ready, they feel it. That strange sensation of having lived this exact moment before. Not just once, but multiple times this week. The déjà vu hits hardest after periods of intense self-criticism, when their mind replays yesterday's mistakes like a broken record. These temporal echoes aren't random glitches. They're signals from the observer loop, showing them they're stuck in a reality feedback loop. Their attention has become so rigid, so obsessed with controlling outcomes, that the quantum field keeps serving the same probability waves over and over. The technology around them becomes an honest mirror of their internal state. Their laptop freezes every single time they open that important presentation, the one they've been obsessing over for days. The moment they surrender control, take a 90-second walk around the block, and return with softer attention, everything flows perfectly. Their phone dies at 47% battery whenever anxiety peaks, yet charges normally when they're calm. One afternoon, after a particularly stressful client call, they noticed their computer crashed 3 times in 20 minutes. But when they paused, placed both hands on their heart, and took 5 deep breaths, the same file opened smoothly on the first try. This isn't superstition. It's quantum sensitivity responding to the coherence frequency they're broadcasting. Their dreams have transformed into something almost cinematic lately. Vivid scenes play out like movie trailers, and within 48 hours, small elements from those dreams appear in waking life. A specific phrase overheard in a cafe, an unusual color combination on a stranger's jacket, the exact song playing in an elevator. They've learned to treat these as probability trailers, subtle quantum openings showing possible timelines consolidating before manifestation. A mentor once suggested keeping a dream journal for 7 consecutive days, noting any recurring symbols or feelings. When they did this, patterns emerged. Dreams featuring water always preceded emotional breakthroughs, while dreams of flying signaled upcoming creative solutions. The unified field was literally sending advance notifications, but only those with refined observation quality could decode them. Even their cat has become a detector of the observer effect in action. The animal refuses to enter the home office on mornings when they're carrying that invisible tension of, "I must make this work." But after 90 seconds of intentional breathing, slowing down, softening the jaw, releasing the grip on outcomes, the cat strolls in casually and settles on the desk. Their houseplants tell a similar story. The fiddle-leaf fig that was drooping for weeks suddenly perked up after they established a calm morning routine of gratitude before checking emails. These aren't coincidences. They're feedback from parallel timelines, responding to shifts in their attention quality. The breakthrough phase doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It whispers through a pet's behavior, a plant's recovery, or the sudden ease of a previously stuck task. What comes next will show them exactly how to measure these signals and use them as a navigation system through reality turbulence. Most people approach reality like they're holding a flashlight in a dark forest, frantically scanning left and right, trying to catch every detail before it disappears. That's the lantern mode, compulsive thinking that exhausts them while illuminating only tiny patches of possibility. The quantum field doesn't respond to desperation or mental gymnastics. It responds to coherence. When someone shifts from lantern to sunlight mode, everything changes. The sun doesn't hunt for what it wants to illuminate. It simply radiates, and everything within range receives light effortlessly. This is what coherent attention looks like: expansive, steady, and magnetic, rather than grasping. The observer loop breaks the moment they stop chasing specific outcomes and start emanating a frequency that allows the highest timeline to find them. Sitting with uncertainty while maintaining inner peace sounds simple, but it confronts every survival instinct they've been conditioned to follow. Their nervous system was trained to resolve, to figure out, to decide the ending before the first scene even begins. But timeline consolidation doesn't happen through force. It happens through what they call coherent uncertainty. Picture someone waiting for test results. Instead of spiraling through every possible scenario, they breathe into their heart space and whisper, "I don't know yet, and I'm okay." That single shift in attention quality creates a phase transition in the probability waves surrounding them. The unified field interprets this as alignment, not resistance. Meta-observation kicks in. They're watching themselves wait without collapsing into fear. This is the difference between quantum navigation and quantum noise. Here's a 2-minute micro-practic that rewires the observer effect in real time. They set a timer and spend the first 30 seconds breathing slowly while focusing attention on the heart center, not visualizing anything, just feeling the physical space behind the sternum. Then for 60 seconds, they soften their gaze and expand their peripheral vision, taking in the entire room without fixing on any single object. This alone interrupts the searchlight pattern that keeps them locked in repetitive reality tracks. Finally, for the last 30 seconds, they bring up a sense of gratitude without attaching it to anything specific. Not, "I'm grateful for my car," but simply the vibration of thankfulness itself. One person tried this before a difficult conversation with their boss and noticed their usual defensiveness completely dissolved. The meeting that typically felt like a battlefield became a collaborative exchange. The morphic resonance of those 2 minutes had shifted the entire interaction field. The pivot phrase worth memorizing is this: attention stops hunting and starts radiating. When they embody that shift, the probability waves stop scattering in every direction and begin organizing around coherence frequency instead. Think of it like switching from a frantic Google search with 47 tabs open to a clear, focused question that brings the exact answer on the first click. Their reality feedback loop is constantly reading the quality of their observation. Are they grabbing or allowing? The moment they relax the mental grip and trust the process, quantum openings appear that were invisible just seconds before. Temporal distortion becomes their ally. Time stretches when they're present, contracts when they're anxious. But what's coming in the next section will prove this isn't theory. It's something they've already experienced without recognizing it. And once they see the pattern, there's no going back. There was a 3-week period when everything seemed to operate under a curse of sophisticated malfunction. Bank transfers delayed for no reason, back-to-back missed connections on the subway, and the same argument replaying with a family member almost word for word every few days. On the surface, these looked like separate incidents of bad luck, but the pattern revealed something deeper, a reality feedback loop locked in repetition. The observer loop had tightened so much that parallel timelines were collapsing into the same narrow track over and over. What broke the cycle wasn't a grand ritual or manifestation technique. It was noticing a tiny, physical sensation that had been there all along, hiding in plain sight. One morning, while reaching for the phone to obsessively check a message that should have arrived by now, they felt it, a subtle clench in the jaw, a microscopic tightening around the temples. That microtension was the signature of the observer effect in hypervigilant mode, collapsing probability waves into anxiety before reality even had a chance to respond. Instead of checking the phone, they tried something counterintuitive. They observed themselves wanting to check. For 15 seconds, they watched the urge without acting on it, like a scientist studying a specimen under glass. The quantum sensitivity in that moment was extraordinary. They could feel their attention quality shift from searchlight to sunlight, from grasping to allowing. Within 90 seconds, the tension dissolved, and 30 seconds later, the phone rang with exactly the message they'd been waiting for, plus an unexpected opportunity attached. The most concrete proof came on a Wednesday morning that started with deliberate inaction. Normally, they'd wake up and immediately scroll through notifications, collapsing every quantum opening into a reactive state before breakfast. That day, they decided to wait. No phone, no checking, just presence. They made coffee slowly, watched the steam rise, felt the warmth of the cup in their hands. By 9 a.m., 3 separate people had reached out with solutions to problems they hadn't even verbalized yet. A colleague texted about a resource that answered a question from the day before. A client rescheduled a stressful meeting to a better time. A friend sent an article that felt like it was written specifically for their current situation. The coherence frequency they'd maintained for just 2 hours had created a breakthrough phase so obvious it couldn't be dismissed as coincidence. The physical marker was undeniable, a lightness in the chest, a sense of temporal distortion where time felt elastic rather than pressured. The lesson extracted from that period wasn't about positive thinking or forced gratitude. It was about measuring results through a completely different lens. Instead of counting wins and losses, they started tracking quality of presence and the arrival of synchronicities. On days when they maintained coherent attention, reality became cooperative, almost playful. On days when the observer loop tightened, when they slipped back into mental rehearsal and outcome obsession, the temporal echoes returned, and the same problems resurfaced in different costumes. Quantum navigation isn't about controlling which timeline appears. It's about becoming the kind of observer that the highest timeline can locate. And what's coming next will reveal the exact signals that tell them a phase transition is already underway, even when it looks like chaos on the surface. When reality turbulence begins, most people panic and interpret it as regression. But it's actually the system recalibrating. Plans get cancelled at the last minute, not as punishment, but as course correction pulling them toward alignment. One person had a job interview moved 3 times, and each delay felt frustrating until the final date arrived and they met someone in the waiting room who became a future business partner. These aren't obstacles. They're the quantum field performing surgery on their timeline, removing what doesn't match their coherence frequency. The phase transition feels like turbulence because multiple probability waves are collapsing and reorganizing simultaneously. It's the tremor on the runway right before the plane reaches takeoff speed, uncomfortable but necessary. The body broadcasts signals during these upgrades that often get misread as problems. Suddenly they can't tolerate noise the way they used to. The TV volume that felt normal last month now feels abrasive. Their taste changes. Processed foods that were enjoyable now taste flat or chemical. Sleep becomes lighter, sometimes splitting into two segments with a wakeful period around 3 a.m. that feels oddly peaceful rather than anxious. These aren't symptoms of illness. They're recalibrations of quantum sensitivity as their observer effect sharpens. One person noticed they started craving water constantly during a breakthrough phase, and short 10-minute walks became non-negotiable. Their nervous system was literally flushing old reality tracks and establishing new temporal patterns. There's no need to glamorize this as a spiritual awakening. It's simple biology responding to shifts in attention quality and coherence. The real work happens in restructuring daily behavior at the micro level, what some call reprogramming the DNA of habit. Instead of reaching for the phone first thing in the morning, a gesture that immediately activates the observer loop, they establish a new sequence. Drink water, take 3 deep breaths, look at the horizon or the farthest point visible from a window. This 90-second anchor interrupts years of automatic reality feedback loops before the day even begins. Before opening emails, they pause and expand peripheral vision for 15 seconds. Before difficult conversations, they place a hand on their heart and feel 5 full breaths. These aren't rituals for ritual's sake. They're pattern interrupts that prevent the searchlight mode from hijacking their attention quality. One executive started doing this before quarterly reviews and noticed team members became less defensive and more collaborative, as if the entire meeting field had shifted in response to one person's coherent presence. The indicators of a genuine breakthrough phase are subtle, but unmistakable once they know what to watch for. Time stops feeling like a treadmill and starts feeling elastic. Some afternoons stretch luxuriously, while tasks get completed faster than expected. The automatic self-criticism that used to narrate every action begins to quiet without effort. Messages, invitations, and resources arrive with uncanny timing, not because they're manifesting, but because their observation quality has aligned them with the highest timeline available. A graphic designer noticed that clients started reaching out the exact week she had openings in her schedule without any advertising or outreach on her part. The unified field doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to morphic resonance, the frequency match between inner coherence and outer opportunity. What's revealed next will show them how this individual transformation ripples outward, creating shifts they never anticipated in the people and systems around them. One person operating from coherence doesn't just change their own experience. They alter the frequency of entire groups without saying a word. It's morphic resonance in action, where the quantum field around a coherent observer begins influencing the probability waves of everyone nearby. A project manager shared how their Monday team meetings used to feel tense and defensive, with people protecting their territory and avoiding accountability. Then they started practicing presence for just 3 minutes before each meeting. Heart-focused breathing, peripheral vision, coherent uncertainty about outcomes. Within 2 weeks, the entire tone shifted. Colleagues who normally interrupted each other began listening. Solutions emerged organically instead of through forced brainstorming. Nobody announced a new policy or sent a memo. One person's attention quality changed the collective reality track, and timeline consolidation happened for the whole group. The concept of finding your people gets flipped entirely when someone stops searching and starts emitting. For years, they might have attended networking events, scrolled through communities, asked friends for introductions, operating from lantern mode, hunting for connection. But the moment they shift to sunlight mode, something extraordinary happens. The right people appear as if magnetically drawn. A writer spent months trying to find a collaborator through online platforms with 0 results. One Tuesday, After weeks of practicing coherent attention and releasing the outcome, they stood in line at a coffee shop and struck up a casual conversation with the person behind them. That stranger turned out to be a video editor looking for exactly the kind of project the writer was developing. No algorithm, no strategy, just quantum openings created by observation quality and the attraction force of alignment. The unified field doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to resonance. Each person has their own temporal window for transformation, and it rarely matches the cosmic calendars or collective predictions circulating online. Some experience their breakthrough phase in March, others in October. It depends entirely on their individual reality feedback loop and when their coherence frequency reaches critical mass. The mistake is waiting for permission from external authorities or astrological events to begin the shift. Their personal timeline consolidation is happening right now, independent of what's trending in spiritual communities. One coach noticed their biggest life changes always clustered around late autumn, while their partner's pivotal moments came in early spring. There's no universal schedule. There's only paying attention to the quantum sensitivity signals their own system is broadcasting. The phase transition doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It responds to readiness. There's a compassionate urgency worth acknowledging here, not from fear, but from opportunity. The train is at the platform with the door open, and the parallel timelines available right now won't stay accessible indefinitely. This isn't about pressure or scarcity. It's about recognizing that their current level of awareness has unlocked possibilities that weren't visible 6 months ago. Walking away from this moment doesn't mean failure. It just means choosing a different track. But for those feeling the pull, sensing the temporal echoes, noticing the reality turbulence, this is the signal that their observer effect is ready to break the loop. The question isn't whether they're capable, it's whether they're willing to trade the familiar searchlight for the unfamiliar sunlight. And everything that follows depends on that single choice made in the next breath they take. Coherence isn't another technique to master. It's the creative force that reorganizes reality without force. Less mental effort, more consistency in attention quality. That's the equation. They've spent years trying to think their way into better timelines, but the quantum field doesn't respond to more analysis. It responds to the frequency they broadcast through presence. Timeline consolidation works like curating a playlist. When they shift their emotional state, different scenes load into their day. Switching from anxious checking to coherent allowing literally changes the sequence of events that unfold. The observer loop breaks the moment they stop trying to control which song plays next and start embodying the vibration that calls forth the entire playlist they actually want. Observing the observer is how they step onto the right train without running, without force, without exhausting themselves in pursuit. So here's what happens next. If this resonated, drop a comment saying, "I am coherent with my highest timeline," or simply, "coherent." That declaration alone shifts something. Subscribe and activate notifications because the next video reveals exactly what happens when they break the observer effect completely. Reality transforms instantaneously, and there's a practical 3-step map for making choices without anxiety. But between now and then, try this, a 24-hour blind test where they remove the labels difficult and easy from every situation. Just observe, stay present, notice what shifts. Keep a simple log of synchronicities, texts that arrive at the perfect moment, encounters that feel arranged, time that stretches in their favor. That's their reality feedback loop, responding to coherence frequency in real time. The breakthrough phase doesn't wait for permission. It starts now.